Hey everyone. So let's talk about a tool that, we all use every single day, but maybe don't truly understand, Git. We're going to skip all those endless lists of commands and just get right to the core, the mental model that, once you see it, makes everything else just click.
Oh man, if you've ever said this, or even just whispered it to yourself in a cold sweat, you are definitely not alone. It's that horrible sinking feeling, right? You run a command, the terminal spits out something weird, and suddenly you're convinced you've just nuked the entire project.
But here's the secret. The thing they should tell you on day one, you can't really break Git. It's built to be incredibly tough. What you can do, and what happens 99% of the time, is just get yourself really, really confused. And that confusion almost always comes from a mismatch, a gap between how you think Git works and how it actually works. So let's fix that.
And it all starts with this one single idea. Seriously, if you only remember one thing from our time here, make it this. The idea of snapshots, not changes, is the key that unlocks pretty much everything else. So most of us start out thinking that when we make a commit, Git is just storing a little file that says, line 5 changed, line 10 was deleted. It's just tracking the differences. But that's not it at all. The reality is much simpler. Think of a commit as Git taking a photograph, a complete snapshot of every single file in your project at that exact moment in time.
And once you get that, all those commands that sound super scary, they suddenly make total sense. A command like reset isn't some terrifying history-deleting weapon. No, you're just telling Git, hey, see that older photo we took? Let's go back and look at that one for a bit. You're just moving a pointer. The other snapshots are still there. It changes these commands from things to fear into just tools for managing your photo album of snapshots.
Okay, so if commits are these big snapshots, how do we actually build them? Well, that brings us to the next piece of the puzzle, what I like to call the 3 arenas. Once you get the flow between these 3 places, you'll be making perfect, clean commits every single time. Think of it like this. First, you've got your working directory. That's just your files. It's your code editor where you're actually typing and making changes. Then, when you've got a change you like, you use git add to move it to the next arena, the staging area. This is like a waiting room or a loading dock. You're getting things ready for the next shipment. And finally, when you're happy with everything in that waiting room, you use git commit to seal the deal and store that permanent snapshot in the repository.
And this is exactly why that staging area is so incredibly powerful. It's not just some extra annoying step. It lets you be an artist. Instead of just blindly doing git add dot and committing a mess of unrelated changes, you can carefully pick and choose. You can say, okay, these 3 lines from this file, and just this one function from that other file, that is my next snapshot. It gives you total control to tell a clean, logical story with your commits.
All right, you ready for the next big aha moment? Let's talk about branches. We tend to think of them as these big, heavy parallel timelines. But the truth is, it's almost laughably simple. So what is a branch, really, under the hood? It's basically just a Post-it note. To be super specific, it's a tiny little text file that has one thing in it, a 40-character string of letters and numbers, which is the unique ID of a single commit. That's it. That's the whole thing. A branch name like main is just a friendly name for a specific snapshot. And knowing this has huge practical consequences. Creating a new branch isn't some big, slow operation. It's literally just creating a tiny file with 40 characters in it. It's instant, it's free. This means you should make branches for absolutely everything. A tiny bug fix? New branch. A small experiment? New branch. The cost is 0, but what you get in return, a totally safe sandbox to work in where you can't possibly mess up the main code base, that safety is very, very real.
Okay, so we've got our snapshots, we have the 3 arenas to build them, and we know that branches are just simple pointers. Let's put all these pieces together and look at the whole map.
So let's build this from the ground up. At the very foundation, you've got the snapshots themselves, those complete pictures of your project. Layered on top of that is the commit history. Each commit doesn't just hold a snapshot, it also holds a link, a pointer, to the commit that came before it, creating this unbreakable chain. And then, at the very top, you have the pointers. These are just labels, your branch names, like main, and a special one called head, which is just Git's way of saying you are here. They're all just little arrows pointing to a specific link in that chain.
And here is the grand finale, the big takeaway. Every single git command you will ever run is just a simple operation on this 3-layer structure. That's all it is. You're either creating a new snapshot, you're moving one of those pointers around, or you're combining snapshots.
Once you can picture this map in your head, the commands stop being magic spells you have to memorize. They become intentional choices.
So now you have the map. You can see how Git actually thinks. You're not just following recipes from a tutorial anymore, you're actually navigating. You now have the power to use Git with confidence, to fix mistakes without that feeling of panic, and to build a really clean, understandable history for your projects. So, now that you see the map, what are you going to go explore first?